A millionaire visited an orphanage with gifts and spotted a boy who looked exactly like him as a child. Immediately, he picked up the phone and called. Daniel Harrison was renowned as one of the wealthiest and most powerful figures in his town. At 39, he had not only built a substantial fortune through real estate, but had also earned a reputation for his generous contributions to charity. Daniel firmly believed that acts of kindness could inspire hope and reshape society. From an early age, he was driven and ambitious. Growing up in a modest family, he worked tirelessly to achieve his success. In the beginning, his intense focus on accumulating wealth made him a bit self-centered, driven primarily by personal gain. Business was everything to him, and financial success was his ultimate goal. He married Melissa, a gentle and caring woman who saw past his hardened exterior, believing in the man he could become. Together, they had a son, Jason, who brought a unique joy into Daniel's life. Yet life had its way of delivering hard lessons. 6 years earlier, a tragic car accident took Melissa and Jason, forever altering Daniel's outlook on life. Overcome with grief and guilt, Daniel came to realize that all the money in the world couldn't replace the people he loved. He had nodded off behind the wheel after an early morning drive home from a party, a mistake that haunted him in his sleepless nights. Resolved to make a difference, he committed himself to supporting those less fortunate. He began funding schools, hospitals, and various charities. His wealth became a means of fostering positive change in the world, rather than a mere measure of his own success. On one of his regular visits to charitable organizations, he decided to stop by an orphanage in a nearby town, managed by a woman named Olivia. When he arrived, Olivia, a woman with a warm smile and kind eyes, greeted him warmly. She showed Daniel around the orphanage, which was well kept, but in clear need of more resources. She explained their challenges, from a shortage of funds to limited volunteers to support the children's care. As Daniel observed the children, he felt a deep sadness, their faces reminding him of his own son. In conversation, Olivia mentioned that with Christmas around the corner, she hoped to give the children a celebration with the gifts they dreamed of. The sparkle in her eyes as she spoke of them revealed her unwavering dedication and love. Inspired by the idea, Daniel eagerly agreed to help. He promised Olivia he'd put together an unforgettable Christmas celebration to surprise the kids, keeping it a complete secret from them. With the support of his team, Daniel dove into planning every aspect of the event. He brought in a professional Santa Claus, arranged for an enormous Christmas tree, and started picking out personalized gifts for each child, everything from toys to clothes to books. Over the next few days, Daniel dedicated himself entirely to organizing the celebration. He wanted each child to experience the magic of Christmas and feel the warmth of generosity. His office, usually reserved for serious meetings, was now brimming with festive decorations and lists of gifts. Daniel personally chose each item, imagining the joy on each child's face as they unwrapped their presents. While preparing, Daniel found himself reflecting on his own journey. He recalled how Melissa used to emphasize the importance of helping others, though he hadn't fully understood back then. Now, he got it. Through the careful planning and genuine desire to give back, he could see how much he had changed. Daniel wasn't just a wealthy businessman anymore. He was someone who appreciated the deeper value of kindness and giving. As Christmas approached, he felt a mix of excitement and anticipation, knowing the celebration would not only bring joy to the children, but would also fill his own heart with meaning and healing. What he didn't realize, though, was that this act of kindness would lead to an unexpected encounter that would reshape his life in unimaginable ways. Finalizing the last details, Daniel glanced at an old picture of Melissa and Jason on his desk. He smiled, feeling closer to them than ever, and committed himself to honoring their memory not just with words, but with actions that made a difference in people's lives. Finally, the big day arrived. The orphanage was alive with excitement. The children were practically bursting with anticipation. The walls sparkled with colorful garlands, twinkling lights, and thoughtfully placed Christmas ornaments. A towering Christmas tree, sparkling with lights and adorned in colorful ornaments, took center stage in the main hall. The sweet scent of freshly baked cookies and rich hot chocolate filled the air, adding to the holiday spirit. Daniel had arrived early, joined by his team and a Santa Claus they'd hired, dressed perfectly in a bright red suit and a fluffy white beard. The kids lit up when they saw him, cheering and dashing forward to greet him. Olivia, the director, greeted them warmly, her face beaming with appreciation. "Welcome, welcome," she exclaimed. "The kids are so excited. They have no clue about the surprise we've planned." Daniel couldn't help but smile, feeling lifted by the children's joyful energy. He'd poured so much effort and heart into preparing this celebration, and seeing the kids' happiness was the best reward he could imagine. Soon, the gift-giving began. The children lined up, brimming with excitement and anticipation. Santa called each of them by name, handing out beautifully wrapped gifts. Every unwrapping was met with delighted laughter and gasps of surprise. Daniel watched, grinning, as warmth filled his heart. As the kids opened their gifts, he wandered around the hall, chatting with them and sharing in their happiness. Each smile, each expression of awe, was a reminder of why he'd committed himself to helping others. Then, his gaze fell upon a boy, sitting quietly in a corner, apart from the festivities. The child, with tousled brown hair and wide, inquisitive eyes, had a shyness about him that drew Daniel in. Daniel decided to approach him, holding a specially wrapped present. "Hey there, mind if I sit here with you?" he asked gently. The boy, looking down, stayed silent. Daniel offered a kind smile, sitting down beside him and extending the gift. "This is for you. I hope you'll like it." The boy hesitated, then took the present with a trembling hand, unwrapping it slowly to reveal a sleek, remote-controlled car. "Thank you," he whispered, barely audible. "You're welcome. What's your name?" Daniel asked. "Harry," the boy replied, still marveling at his new toy. When Harry finally looked up, Daniel felt a shiver down his spine. There was something eerily familiar about the boy. It felt like he was staring into a reflection of his own past. The resemblance was uncanny. The same bone structure, the same expressive gaze. A wave of nerves swept over him, making his palms sweat and his hands shake a bit. "Do you like remote-controlled cars, Harry?" Daniel asked, working hard to keep steady. Harry, still smiling, nodded. "Yeah, a lot. I've never had one, though," he replied. Daniel took a deep breath, struggling to manage the rush of feelings inside him. Seeing Harry stirred up. Memories he thought he'd buried. Memories of his own son, Jason. The resemblance between them was unnervingly similar and impossible to ignore. After handing out the last few gifts, Daniel went to find Olivia. He had to understand more about this boy and the reason behind the resemblance to his own son. "Olivia, can I talk to you for a minute?" he asked, catching her by the Christmas tree. "Of course, Daniel." "Is everything all right?" she replied, noticing the intensity on his face. "I met a boy named Harry," he started. "There's something about him. He reminds me of someone from years ago. Can you tell me his story?" Olivia nodded and led Daniel to a quieter spot in the room. "Harry is 7, she began. "He's been with us since he was a baby, and we're not exactly sure of his birth date. According to a note left with him, his parents passed away in an accident, and someone who couldn't care for him left him here." Olivia's words sent a chill down Daniel's spine. He thanked her, but quickly made an excuse to head home, overwhelmed by what he'd learned. Once he was back, he pulled out an old family photo. The accident that took his wife Melissa and son Jason happened exactly 6 years ago. He had dozed off at the wheel, and when he woke from a coma 3 months later, Melissa and Jason were gone. The guilt had weighed on him ever since. Now, Harry's story haunted him. Too many details lined up perfectly. There was no way he could ignore the connection. He had to learn more about this boy who felt like a piece of his past. Deep down, he sensed this was no coincidence. In the days that followed, Daniel's anxiety only deepened. The story of Harry, along with their uncanny resemblance, kept gnawing at him. Determined to find answers, Daniel arranged a meeting with his trusted lawyer, Wayne Hunter. Wayne, an experienced and dependable man, had guided Daniel through many pivotal moments in his life. As Daniel stepped into Wayne's well-appointed office, he was met with a warm welcome. Wayne stood from his leather chair and extended a hand. "Daniel, it's always good to see you. What brings you in today?" Daniel sat down, gathering his thoughts before he spoke. He took a deep breath and started explaining his concerns. "Wayne, there's this boy at the orphanage I've been supporting. His name is Harry. He's 7, and somehow he reminds me of myself at that age. It's like looking back at my younger self. I can't get him out of my mind, and I'm considering finding out more about him. Maybe even adopting him." Wayne listened intently, his expression growing more serious as Daniel spoke. He understood the weight of Daniel's past and the significance of this moment. "I get it, Daniel. Adoption is a big commitment, but the first step is to understand the legal requirements. The adoption process can be drawn out and complex, especially without clear information on a child's biological parents." Daniel nodded, a tightness forming in his chest. "I want to handle everything by the book, Wayne, but I'm not sure where to begin." Wayne picked up a notepad, jotting down key points. "First, we'll need all the documentation available on Harry. This means gathering what the orphanage has on file. Then we submit an adoption application. This could take several months, maybe even a year or more." He paused, looking directly at Daniel. "There might be one way to potentially streamline this. If there's any chance of a family connection between you and Harry, it might simplify things. Have you thought about a DNA test?" A chill ran down Daniel's spine. The thought of Harry possibly being his own child was both exciting and overwhelming. "Wayne, I'm not sure I can handle that. The resemblance is there, but how could he be my son? I only ever had one partner, Melissa, and she and our son, Jason, both died in the accident. I just can't see how Harry could be my son." Daniel's uncertainty hung in the air as Wayne nodded in understanding. "I get it," Wayne said gently, "but it's a possibility worth keeping open. If you ever reconsider, I'm here to support you." Daniel gave a brief nod of thanks, rising to leave. As he moved toward the door, Wayne continued, "Daniel, I know this isn't easy, but the truth often shows up in unexpected ways. If you sense any connection to Harry, maybe it's worth exploring every possibility. This could be a chance for him to have a better life, and perhaps it's the key to answering some of your own questions." Pausing at the door, Daniel absorbed Wayne's words, feeling the weight of doubt and the pull of unanswered questions. "Thank you, Wayne. I'll think it over. For now, though, I'll focus on the adoption process. I want to give Harry the life he deserves." Wayne gave a supportive smile, nodding. "We'll make it happen, Daniel. I'll be with you every step." With that, Daniel left, his thoughts swirling. Driving home, he replayed Wayne's words, the suggestion of a DNA test tugging at his emotions in ways he hadn't expected. For now, though, he was committed to moving forward with the adoption, set on giving Harry a fresh start. Once home, he studied an old family photo, feeling the long journey ahead, but ready to uncover the truth. He believed this connection with Harry was no coincidence. The boy had come into his life for a reason, and Daniel would keep searching until he understood it fully. The unanswered questions gnawed at him, keeping him restless. Finally, Daniel resolved to go beyond adoption. He'd dig deeper. He decided to hire a private investigator to delve into Harry's past and the uncanny resemblance that hinted at something more. Liam Carter, a seasoned investigator known for cracking even the toughest cases, agreed to meet him. In a dimly lit office stacked with files and equipment, Daniel took his first step toward finding answers. "Mr. Harrison, it's great to finally meet you," Liam greeted warmly, giving Daniel's hand a solid shake. "I hear you've got quite an interesting case for me." "Thank you, Liam, for meeting on such short notice," Daniel replied. "I need you to uncover everything you can about a boy named Harry, who's currently living in an orphanage. He's only 7, but his past is a total mystery. I need to find out who his birth parents are and how he ended up in the orphanage." Daniel hesitated, then added, "There's something about him. His resemblance to my late son is unsettling. I need answers." Liam nodded, pulling out his notebook to jot down the details. "Got it. First thing, I'll need access to any records at the orphanage and any other paperwork you've got on him. Then we'll follow every possible lead." Daniel handed Liam a folder with copies of files Olivia had given him. Liam glanced through the documents, noting key details mentally. "I'll begin at the orphanage, talk with the director, and go through the records. I'll also look for anything else that might not be in these files." He continued, "We might need to dig deeper, maybe even check local hospitals for any admissions around the time Harry was found." In the following days, Liam launched his investigation at the orphanage, meeting with Olivia, who shared all she had on Harry, including a handwritten note found with him. Liam took photos of the note, made copies of documents, and hunted for any clues they might hold. Next, he visited the local hospital to check for records on any child left or abandoned near the time Harry arrived. He also searched through newspaper archives for reports of accidents that could be connected to Harry's story. The investigation started to yield some intriguing clues. Notably, Liam uncovered that, around the time Harry was left at the orphanage, a serious car accident had occurred nearby. Records showed a couple died, but there was no mention of a child being involved. This caught Liam's attention, as it seemed connected to Olivia's account to Daniel. Gathering this information, Liam knew there was still plenty of ground to cover. He realized it was just the beginning of a complex case, but felt certain that, with persistence, he could deliver the answers Daniel was looking for. Meanwhile, as the investigation unfolded, Daniel began visiting the orphanage more often, eager to connect with Harry. Each visit allowed him to spend time with the boy who so deeply intrigued him, forming a bond that grew increasingly natural. At first, Daniel kept things easygoing, bringing small gifts and games that he knew would brighten the children's day. Over time, Harry started feeling more at ease around Daniel, even though his natural introversion made him a bit reluctant to fully open up. One bright Saturday, Daniel arrived at the orphanage with a brand new soccer ball. Knowing how much Harry loved the game, he hoped it would be a way to connect. "Hey, Harry, how about we kick the ball around a little today?" Daniel asked, holding up the ball. Harry glanced at him, his eyes lighting up with interest, but still a bit cautious. I do like soccer, but I mostly play by myself," he murmured. "Well, today we can be teammates," Daniel said with a warm smile. "How about a friendly match? Let's see who can score the most goals." Harry nodded shyly, then followed Daniel out to the small field behind the orphanage. They began playing slowly, with Daniel letting Harry set the rhythm. Bit by bit, Harry started to relax, showing off his moves, and even attempting a few fancy dribbles. Daniel wasn't as skilled as Harry, but he was genuinely having a great time. After an hour of playing, both of them were winded but happy. They sat down on the grass to catch their breath, and Daniel saw a chance to get to know Harry better. "You're really good at soccer, Harry. Have you been practicing for long?" he asked, curious to learn more about his interests. Harry grinned, clearly proud. "Yeah, I've loved playing since I was little. Here at the orphanage, whenever I can, I come out to kick the ball around. It makes me feel free." "I get it. What else do you enjoy besides soccer?" Daniel asked, genuinely interested in the boy's other hobbies. Harry thought for a moment, then replied, "I like reading adventure stories, playing with toy cars, and sometimes I draw too. I like imagining new places and putting them on paper." "Drawing? That's awesome. Maybe you could show me some of your drawings next time I'm here," Daniel suggested, thrilled to see more of Harry's world. Harry nodded, a small, shy smile spreading across his face. "I'd like that." Daniel started visiting the orphanage regularly. Each time, the children would eagerly gather around him, but he always made sure to carve out special time just for Harry. They played soccer, read stories together, and as promised, Harry proudly shared his drawings. Harry had a talent for bringing made-up worlds to life, and each sketch was brimming with adventures that seemed straight out of a classic storybook. As time passed, Harry gradually opened up, sharing dreams of becoming a professional soccer player or a renowned artist who could travel and see the world. Daniel always listened with interest, encouraging Harry to believe his dreams were within reach. With each conversation, Harry's eyes sparkled with renewed excitement, and he soon found himself eagerly counting down to Daniel's next visit. For Daniel, these visits were unexpectedly fulfilling, filling an emptiness he hadn't realized was there. The bond between them deepened steadily, giving Daniel the sense that he was truly where he needed to be. Harry was no longer just a boy he visited. He had become an essential part of Daniel's life, and Daniel felt determined to make this connection lasting. While Daniel grew closer to Harry, Liam pressed on with his meticulous investigation. He pored over archived files, talked to hospital staff, and interviewed community members who might know something about Harry's past. Weeks of relentless work led Liam to a crucial discovery. One overcast afternoon, as he combed through old medical documents, he stumbled upon a report from 6 years ago about a car accident involving a young couple. The report stated that the couple had not survived the accident, but there was an additional note. A male infant was found at the scene and taken to the hospital for evaluation. Liam's pulse quickened. This could be the lead he needed. Digging further, he accessed hospital admission records from the time and confirmed that an infant had indeed been admitted, though the details became murky shortly afterward, as the baby seemed to disappear from the records soon after arrival. Armed with these findings, Liam compiled every piece of evidence he'd gathered and set up an urgent meeting with Daniel. In Daniel's office, Liam laid out all he had uncovered. "Mr. Harrison, I came across some details that could be crucial to Harry's case. There's a record of a car accident that happened around the time Harry was brought to the orphanage. The report talks about a couple who passed away in the crash and a baby who was taken to the hospital. The baby's age and circumstances line up perfectly with Harry's history." Daniel listened carefully, a chill running down his spine. The coincidences felt almost too eerie to be real. "What else did you find, Liam?" he asked. "Well, here's where it gets even stranger," Liam continued. "The hospital records list the parents of the baby as Melissa and Daniel. I know it sounds unbelievable, but that's what the documents say." Daniel was speechless, unable to process what he was hearing. Melissa and Daniel, that was his and his late wife's names. How could they be tied to this accident? And a baby? "It doesn't add up, Liam. I was in that accident. Melissa died, and so did our son, Jason. I was in a coma for 3 months, and by the time I woke up, they were both buried. Liam nodded, recognizing the confusion. I understand, Mr. Harrison. I was thrown off at first too, but those are the names on file. We need to look deeper to figure out what's going on here. It could be an error, or just something we haven't uncovered yet. More hospital records or witnesses might be able to clear things up. Daniel stood there, speechless. The pieces were beginning to come together in ways he'd never anticipated. He needed to know the truth and was more determined than ever to find out Harry's full story. Keep digging, Liam. I want to know exactly what happened. If there's any real connection between Harry and my family, we need answers. Liam nodded, equally committed to solving the mystery. He knew this was just the beginning of something much larger and more complicated. With Daniel's approval, Liam would continue chasing every lead until the truth came out. Daniel felt shaken by what Liam had uncovered. The idea that Harry could actually be his biological son, a thought he had dismissed at first, now seemed impossible to ignore. The coincidences were too alarming to overlook. For days, Daniel wrestled with what to do. He thought about Harry, the visits to the orphanage, and the connection they had built. More than anything, he felt the need for a clear answer. The uncertainty gnawed at him, and he knew there was only one way to find out: a DNA test. On a chilly winter morning, Daniel made up his mind. He set up a meeting with his lawyer, Wayne, to plan the next steps. Sitting in Wayne's polished office, Daniel shared his decision, his voice filled with newfound resolve. Wayne, I've thought long and hard about this. I want to go through with the DNA test to find out if Harry is really my son. I can't live with this question hanging over me. Wayne nodded, recognizing the weight of Daniel's choice. I understand, Daniel. Doing the DNA test is the smart move given everything. We'll handle it quietly to keep Harry's privacy intact and ensure the results are accurate. Plans for the test moved forward immediately. Wayne arranged for sample collection from both Daniel and Harry, making sure the process was handled professionally and confidentially. Daniel filled Olivia in on the situation, and though surprised, she agreed to support him. When the day came to collect the samples, Daniel felt a wave of nerves. He went to the orphanage to pick up Harry, doing his best to stay composed so as not to worry the boy. During the drive to the clinic, Harry looked curious, but trusted Daniel. Where are we going, Daniel? Harry asked, watching the world pass by outside the car window. We're going to the clinic to run a quick test, Harry. Just a little checkup. Nothing to worry about, Daniel reassured him gently. Harry continued to look around the vehicle as they were driving, clearly enamored with the plush interior. This car is awesome. I've never ridden in anything like this before, he exclaimed. At the orphanage, we only ever take buses for trips. Daniel grinned, pleased to see Harry's excitement. Glad you like it. Who knows? Maybe there'll be lots more trips in our future. At the clinic, the test went smoothly and without any discomfort. Harry was brave, following the nurse's instructions perfectly, while Daniel waited anxiously, feeling like every minute stretched on forever. Once they were done, they headed back to the car. On the drive back to the orphanage, Harry's curiosity got the better of him. Daniel, why are we doing this test? Is it because I might be sick? Daniel paused, choosing his words carefully. No, buddy, it's not about being sick. It's just to make sure of some very important things. You're incredibly special to me, and I want to be certain everything's all right. Harry looked reassured, though a bit puzzled. I trust you, Daniel. If you say it's important, then it must be. In the days that followed, waiting for the results became almost unbearable. Daniel found it hard to focus on his work, his mind constantly drifting back to Harry. He imagined every possible outcome, preparing himself as best he could for whatever was ahead. Meanwhile, he continued his regular visits to Harry at the orphanage. Each visit deepened their connection, making Daniel even more eager to uncover the truth. Finally, the waiting ended. A call from Wayne saying the DNA test results were in brought a mix of relief and nervousness. Daniel knew he was on the verge of discovering something that could change his life. The next morning, he made his way to Wayne's office. Every stoplight and turn seemed to add to his anticipation. Arriving at last, he took a deep breath and stepped inside, ready to face whatever awaited him. Wayne waited in the conference room, holding an unopened envelope. His face was solemn, though there was a hint of empathy in his gaze. "Daniel, here are the results," he said, offering the envelope. "If you're ready, we can look at them together." Daniel nodded, taking a seat across from him, his hands unsteady as he reached for the envelope. With a final glance at Wayne, Daniel opened it, unfolding the paper inside. His eyes quickly darted across the words, searching for the confirmation he needed. When he found it, he paused, rereading the lines to make sure he fully understood. "The results confirm that Harry is, in fact, Jason, your biological son," Wayne said, breaking the silence. "He survived the accident." A surge of powerful emotions washed over Daniel. His eyes filled with tears as he tried to absorb the news. Harry, the boy he had come to know so well, was indeed his long-lost son, Jason. He was alive. "My son is alive," Daniel murmured, barely audibly, more to himself than to Wayne. Wayne nodded, giving Daniel a moment to let it sink in. "This changes everything, Daniel. We can start the adoption process more directly now. Since you're Jason's biological father, it should make the legal steps much quicker." Daniel wiped his tears, a new resolve in his eyes. "I want him to come home with me, as soon as possible. He's been away from family for too long, and we should also change his name back to Jason." Wayne began jotting down notes. "I'll handle everything. With this confirmation, it'll be a more straightforward process." In the days that followed, Daniel continued visiting Harry at the orphanage, keeping the DNA results a secret until everything was finalized. He wanted the reveal to be a special moment, marking a fresh start for them both. Each night, he lay awake, reflecting on the twist of fate that had brought him and his son back together. Joy mixed with lingering sorrow over the accident and the loss of Melissa. With each visit, his commitment to giving Harry, or rather Jason, the love and security he deserved, only deepened. Finally, Wayne let Daniel know that everything was in place to begin the adoption process. A wave of relief and joy washed over Daniel. He knew there would still be hurdles, but he now had a newfound certainty. He was ready to give everything he had to be the best father to Jason. With the DNA test confirming Harry was indeed his son, Jason, Daniel was more determined than ever to complete the adoption quickly. The revelation had changed his world, and now he was focused on bringing Jason home. Even though the biological connection simplified things, the adoption process still came with legal and emotional obstacles. Wayne, Daniel's trusted attorney, got started on the necessary paperwork to make the adoption happen as smoothly and efficiently as possible. "Even with your confirmed connection, we still have to go through legal procedures," Wayne explained during one of their discussions. "There'll be psychological evaluations, home visits, and a number of documents to submit to the court." Daniel nodded, fully aware of the complexity ahead. "Do whatever it takes, Wayne. I'm ready to overcome any obstacle to bring Jason home." As the legal process unfolded, Daniel realized it was time to speak with Harry about the adoption and share the truth with him. On one of his visits to the orphanage, he took Harry to a quiet park where they could talk freely. Sitting on a bench under the shade of a large tree, Daniel looked at Harry and gently held his small hands. "Harry, there's something very important I need to tell you," he began, his voice soft and full of emotion. "Remember the test we took a while back? The results revealed something amazing. You're not just a special kid to me. You're actually my biological son." "You're Jason," he continued, "the son I thought I'd lost in the accident." Harry's eyes widened as he took in the news, his voice filled with both wonder and hope as he asked, "I'm really your son?" Daniel nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Yes, you're my son, Jason, and I want to officially adopt you so we can be a family again." Smiling through his own tears, Harry hugged Daniel tightly. "I always felt like you were special to me, Dad. I want to be part of your family too." After solidifying their bond, Daniel pressed ahead with the adoption process. Wayne arranged all the necessary assessments, and social workers made visits to Daniel's home, ensuring it provided a secure, loving environment for Jason. At last, the day for the court hearing arrived. Daniel, joined by Wayne and Harry, stepped into the courtroom. The judge carefully reviewed all the paperwork and assessments, listening intently as Wayne presented the case. "Mr. Harrison," the judge addressed, meeting Daniel's gaze, "all documents and evaluations demonstrate that you are a devoted, responsible parent. I am inclined to approve the adoption. However, there's a request to alter the child's name. I'd like your input on that." Daniel looked at Harry, who was by his side, holding his hand tightly, remembering their talks about the name. Harry had shared his wish to preserve part of his identity from the orphanage. "Your Honor," Daniel began, "Harry has asked to keep a part of his name from the orphanage. To honor the place that took care of him all these years, we'd like to rename him Jason Harry Harrison." The judge gave a warm smile and nodded. "That's a wonderful gesture." With that, the adoption was granted, and the child's new official name became Jason Harry Harrison. Relief and joy surged through Daniel as he thanked the judge, the lawyer, and everyone who had played a role in the journey. As they exited the courthouse, he kneeled down beside Jason Harry and wrapped him in a heartfelt embrace. "Jason Harry, we're officially family now," Daniel said, voice full of emotion. Jason Harry grinned, his eyes brimming with joy. "I'm so happy, Daddy. Thank you for everything." "I'm happy too, son," Daniel replied. "Let's go home. We have so much to look forward to together." As Daniel and Jason Harry began settling into their life as a family, Liam pressed forward with his relentless investigation. The mystery of how Jason Harry survived the accident and eventually ended up in the orphanage was still unsolved, and Liam was determined to uncover the entire truth. After weeks of digging and conducting interviews, Liam finally stumbled upon a critical lead. He managed to locate Tiffany, a nurse who had been on duty when Jason Harry was brought to the hospital after the accident. Tiffany had disappeared from the hospital abruptly, almost vanishing without a trace. But Liam's investigative skills led him to a small town on the outskirts. He traveled there, using local contacts to arrange a private meeting with Tiffany at a quiet cafe. When he arrived, he spotted a woman in her middle years, her face reflecting both fatigue and a resolute spirit. "Tiffany, I'm Liam Carter, a private investigator," Liam began, his voice calm but firm. "I'm here to discuss a case you know quite well." He paused, watching Tiffany carefully. She stared back with wary eyes, suspicion flickering across her face. But after a moment, she nodded. "I've been expecting this. I always knew someone would eventually come looking," she replied, her tone resigned but steady. Liam leaned forward, his focus unwavering. "Then you know why I'm here. I need you to tell me exactly what happened to baby Jason Harry after the accident. We need the truth." Tiffany took a long, deep breath, and her expression softened, though her eyes reflected the burden of the past. "The night of the accident is still clear in my mind," she started quietly. I was on duty at the hospital when they brought him in. The baby was critically injured but still alive. His parents, they didn't make it." She paused, her gaze drifting as though recalling each painful detail. "Not long after, a man approached me. He offered me a significant amount of money to hand the baby over to him. He claimed the child would be well taken care of, but something about him didn't sit right with me. When I refused, he made threats. I was terrified, and in the end, I decided I had to take the baby somewhere safe." Liam nodded, absorbing each word. "So, you left him at an orphanage?" he asked, his tone soft but intent. Tiffany met his eyes and gave a solemn nod. "Yes, I did. I left Jason Harry at the orphanage with a note that fabricated a story about his parents. I had to make sure he wouldn't fall into the wrong hands, but I knew I couldn't care for him myself." Liam watched her closely, understanding the gravity of her decision. "Do you have any idea who the man was?" Tiffany shook her head. "No, he never gave a name, but he had power, real power. I could feel it. I left the hospital soon after, going into hiding. I was too afraid he might come after me if I stayed." Liam thanked her for her honesty, reassuring her that he would ensure her safety, then left to report back to Daniel. In Daniel's office, Liam sat down, reviewing the details he'd learned. "Daniel, we have Tiffany's confession. She explained that she was pressured to consider giving up Jason Harry, but ultimately, she placed him in the orphanage to protect him." A mix of anger and relief passed over Daniel's face. "Who would want my son, Liam? Who was behind this?" "Unfortunately, Tiffany didn't know his identity," Liam replied, "but we're closer to finding out. What matters now is that Jason Harry ended up at the orphanage to shield him from harm, not due to neglect or abandonment." The information gathered was promptly handed over to the authorities, who quickly launched an investigation into the kidnapping and threats against Jason Harry. Tiffany agreed to cooperate, providing a detailed account of the man who had approached her. With her crucial testimony, investigators began piecing together the man's profile and tracking down possible suspects linked to him. Tiffany's involvement in protecting Jason Harry and her cooperation in the case played a significant role in minimizing her legal consequences. As a result, she was placed in witness protection for her safety, while the authorities continued their search for the mysterious man. For Daniel, learning the truth finally brought him a sense of peace and understanding. Though aware that the journey was far from over, he felt reassured by understanding how his son had ended up at the orphanage. Grateful for the closure, he devoted himself to creating a safe and fulfilling future for his new family. With Tiffany's confession on record and the valuable information she provided, the investigation into the man who attempted to take Jason Harry gained strong momentum. Liam was determined to uncover every detail of the truth, redoubling his efforts to identify and capture the culprit. Using all his available resources and connections, he finally secured a promising lead. Tiffany's description, paired with old hospital records and witness accounts, led Liam to a local businessman with a questionable past, Victor Crawford. Victor was no stranger to illegal dealings, including document forgery and suspected involvement in kidnappings. Without delay, Liam alerted Daniel and the authorities to his discovery. The police assembled a team to execute a well-coordinated operation aimed at arresting Victor and gathering the necessary evidence for a solid conviction. Early in the morning of the planned raid, Liam joined the police force at Victor's grand estate. The atmosphere was tense as officers discreetly surrounded the property, preparing for entry. With a search and seizure warrant ready, they entered Victor's home, catching him off guard in the midst of his morning routine. Surprised and unprepared, Victor attempted to resist and make a run for it, but he was quickly overpowered, restrained, and handcuffed. Standing close by, Liam observed the scene with a deep sense of relief, watching as the man who had threatened Jason Harry was finally taken into custody. A thorough search of the property uncovered a substantial cache of forged documents, including altered hospital records and falsified identity papers. During the interrogation, Victor initially insisted he was innocent, but the sheer amount of incriminating evidence left him with no room for denial. He eventually admitted his involvement in the attempt to kidnap Jason Harry under pressure from the investigators. He confessed to fabricating documents to mask the child's identity, intending to sell Jason Harry to a wealthy family abroad. Victor's voice was chilling as he confessed, "I saw a chance to make a lot of money, and I didn't care what I had to do to get it." His disregard for others in pursuit of wealth was now laid bare, fueling a swift response from authorities. They not only apprehended Victor, but dismantled his entire network of illicit dealings. As the shocking revelations about his operations and eventual arrest spread, it caused a ripple of shock and relief within the community. Upon hearing the news, Daniel felt a complex blend of emotions. Relief that the man who had taken his son was finally behind bars, mixed with anger over the suffering Victor had caused so many. Daniel's lawyer, Wayne, took every step to ensure all evidence against Victor was meticulously presented in court. The facts, paired with Victor's own chilling confession, left the court with little hesitation. The judge handed down a harsh sentence, condemning Victor to many years in prison for kidnapping, forgery, and numerous other charges. With this resolution, Daniel sensed that a painful chapter of his life was finally closing. To express his gratitude, he visited Luis, the investigator, to thank him personally for his unwavering commitment to the case. "Luis, you didn't just find my son, you made sure justice was served. I'll never be able to thank you enough," Daniel said earnestly as he took Luis's hand in a firm handshake. Luis nodded, smiling warmly. "It was an honor to help, Daniel. Seeing the truth come out and knowing Jason Harry is safe. That's all I need," he replied. With Victor out of their lives, Daniel and Jason Harry began settling into a life that was finally peaceful and secure. As their bond strengthened, Daniel devoted himself to creating a life for Jason Harry that was rich with love and opportunity. The mansion, once a quiet, lonely space, was now filled with life and laughter. Jason Harry, with the knowledge of his true identity and surrounded by his father's warmth, was beginning to thrive. Adjusting to their life together was a gradual process, but Daniel committed time and effort to ensure that Jason Harry felt completely at home. Daniel even redecorated a room especially for his son, filling it with all the toys and books the boy had only dreamed of. The walls were adorned with Jason Harry's own drawings, a tribute to the creativity and resilience that had carried him through so much. "Jason Harry," Daniel said as he carefully hung up the last drawing, "this is your home now. I want you to feel free to be exactly who you are." The boy's face lit up, his eyes sparkling with joy. "Thank you, Dad," he said softly. "I've never had a room like this before." Daniel settled into home life with a refreshed energy, balancing his domestic responsibilities with an intensified dedication to his charitable pursuits. He believed that his acts of kindness could inspire positive change and bring renewed hope to people facing hardships. Daniel frequently visited hospitals, orphanages, and schools with his son Jason Harry, always on the lookout for ways to help those who were less fortunate. At one particular charity event, he gave a heartfelt speech about the importance of reaching out to others. "My life has changed drastically in the past few months, and it has made me realize the value of compassion and solidarity." Daniel found a profound purpose in assisting others, and this work filled his heart with a deep sense of meaning. Jason Harry, observing his father's actions, began to understand the significance of giving back. He often took part in the charity efforts, eagerly helping to distribute toys and books to children, experiencing firsthand the impact of generosity. Every year on Melissa's birthday, Daniel and Jason Harry would make a special visit to her gravesite. This annual ritual was a moment of reflection, where they would share stories, remember her, and feel close to her once again. Daniel would bring fresh flowers, laying them gently by her grave, while Jason Harry would leave a drawing of his own creation, showing that, despite the separation, their love and connection remained alive. Melissa, I miss you every day, but I promise I'm doing everything I can to look after our son. He's a wonderful boy, full of life and dreams, Daniel would say, sensing Melissa's presence in every word. Standing by his side, Jason Harry would add, "Mum, I'm okay. Daddy takes such good care of me, and I always think of you. I hope you're proud of us." As time went by, Daniel and Jason Harry grew comfortable with their new routines and lifestyle. Their home was no longer just a place to live. It was now filled with love, laughter, and hope. They found joy in small moments, whether it was spending time together in the garden, experimenting with new recipes in the kitchen, or reading bedtime stories that strengthened their bond. As a result of his experience, Daniel started giving speeches at charity events and sharing his story in the hope that it would inspire others to persevere and maintain their faith even in the most difficult circumstances. "Jason Harry," he would say during their quiet conversations, "always remember, no matter what happens, there's always hope." With a look of admiration, Jason Harry would respond, "I know, Dad. I think we're going to help a lot of people," his face lighting up with pride and understanding. The life Daniel and Jason Harry shared became a true testament to the resilience found in love and perseverance. Together, they had faced unimaginable challenges and emerged stronger, each day reinforcing their commitment to helping others. They lived by the belief that compassion and kindness could bring real, lasting change to the world. As they looked ahead, Daniel and Jason Harry knew that, no matter what awaited them, they would always have each other. Armed with hope and driven by the desire to do good, they were ready to face whatever the future might hold. I hope you enjoyed today's story. If you did, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this one. Don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.